Hi everyone, my name is Eston Schroeder and I'm here to talk to you about sexual health in adolescents. Alright, so my goals for the lecture today, I first want to talk about consent. I want the students and the teachers to understand the basis of consent and what it is. Second, I want to talk about protection. How can you prevent the dangers of STIs or pregnancy? And the third is teen pregnancy. How to prevent this and the effects of teen pregnancy. Alright, what is consent? Consent is a permission or agreement for something to happen. Consent, in a simple way, is pretty much yes means yes and no means no. No, maybe does not mean yes, possibly does not mean yes, yes means yes, and no means no. Consent is a very important thing to have before you have sex. Actually, it's so important that it's actually become a law. It's called the affirmative consent law. I also posted a little video right here about consent. It's a pretty cool video. It's a very high-spirited video. It's one that the athletic department likes to show, the Chico State Athletics. And pretty much what the person does is he takes consent into a different form, and he turns consent into a cup of tea. So he takes you and your partner, and he says, say you were offering your friend some tea, and they said, yes, I'd like some tea. Okay, you have consent. Now, what if they said, no, I don't want any tea? Then you don't have consent, and etc., and it goes on like that, and you learn the key concept of what consent is. Alright, so consent is so important nowadays. It is becoming increasingly more important, with people coming out how they are about sexual assaults and whatnot, and how they're not of consent. So we as educators, we need to teach that. We need to be better at teaching kids about what consent is. We need to teach them the signs of consent. I'm a believer that consent is shown through body language, but at the same time, if that body language is coming through being impaired or intoxicated or not in the right mindset, that's not consent. If consent is, like I've been saying, yes is yes and no is no. In the United States, every year there's 321,500 victims who are victims of sexual assault, and this is a number that is way too high. This is a number that could easily be cut in half if consent was in play. But because in schools or the parents aren't teaching what consent is, these kids don't understand, and by that happening, sexual assaults happen. And also, you have everything else that happens with people with sick minds, but right here we're simply talking about consent and in the students. Alright, now if we're talking about sex, well, we also need to talk about protection. Alright, what is protection? Well, protection is what you need if you're going to have safe sex. Protection prevents against STIs and STDs. Protection can prevent against teen pregnancies. Protection can also prevent against death. If we're talking about AIDS and we're talking about HIV, that's a big one. Those can cause death. Now, research has shown that 62% of males in high school and college students report that they are practicing safe sex and wearing a condom, or they're using other types of preventative measures to protect themselves during sex. This is huge. This is something we need to encourage. 62% is a very high percentage. It's more than half, but it's still not high enough. That's 38%. That's 38% that are having sex unprotected. That's not okay. We need to be better at teaching these kids about the dangers of unprotected sex and what can happen if they don't wear a condom or they don't go against protective measures. So we need to teach them what are the different kinds of protections. So we have condoms, birth control, patch, female condom, and the list goes on. There's about 15 to 20 different types of different protections, but there's only one that can give you 100% accuracy that will never fail you, and that's abstinence. We need to teach kids to practice abstinence, and if they're not going to practice abstinence, then we really need to teach them how to be safe when they're having sex. And if they're not safe enough, well, then we end up in teen pregnancy. Now, teen pregnancy is something that happens every day. I say that lightly because a lot of things happen every day. You have death that happens every day. You have people who are born every day, but at the same time, people are getting pregnant. Teens are getting pregnant every single day. In the United States alone, 750,000 teens get pregnant every year. That's insane. That's 3/4. Excuse me. That's 3/4 of a million women are getting pregnant. Teens are getting pregnant a year. That's way too high. These teens that are getting pregnant, they're getting, their education's getting affected by this. Statistics show that 40% of pregnant teens finish high school. Like, only 40% of those pregnant teens finish high school. That is so low. That is not even half of them finish. We need to be better about telling these kids what can happen if this doesn't happen, if you don't take precautionary measures when having sex. Only 30% of teens finish college before 30 years of age. 30% of those teens that got pregnant finish college, and to add on to it, it's going to take them another 8 years to even finish. When most people are done around 21, 22, 23, that's going to take them 8 to 9 years just to finish. That's extra. That is way too long. Now we have teen pregnancy can also be costly. This is another thing that we're not teaching our kids. We're not teaching our students that there is a cost behind teen pregnancy. You have economic costs and you have social costs. Babies aren't cheap. That's one thing we're not thinking about when we're having sex. We're not thinking about the kid. We're thinking about the pleasure, and that's what we need to get people's minds away from. We need to think about the consequences. Now, it can be costly. My best friend is unfortunately not unfortunately a beautiful child, but he had a kid and he was struggling. Thank God his parents were there and helped him out with it, and beautiful daughter, and they're doing well now. But I've heard about stories about other kids where they're not able to take care of their kid and they have to give them up for adoption because they don't have the funds for it, and that's sad. And we need everyone to know that every one of these kids, we need to teach them. We need to almost scare them into the fact that they need to realize what's happening when they take these actions. The dropout rates for pregnant teens is extremely high as well. 30% of girls who become pregnant in high school drop out without receiving their diploma. There are so many things you can't do in this world without a diploma, and that's 30% of the people in this world that aren't able to do anything because they don't have a diploma, because they took a chance and that chance didn't go their way. My last slide is my references, and I hope you enjoy this. I want to apologize for going extremely long, going a couple minutes over. Also, I want to apologize for my nervousness in front of the camera. I don't really get in front of the camera that much, but thank you, and I hope you enjoy this.